Nice background.
Oh, what? Apparently, I'm still streaming.
Yeah. Oh, wait. What? That black screen.
Oh, fuck off.
GeForce experience, dude. Yeah, sweet. Calm down, Romano.
Ah.
I'm just kind of upset that Foles blocked me.
It's a joke. I didn't block you, and I can only still see the slideshow. Is that what we're looking
Yeah,
at?
because that's all you're
Yeah,
meant to be
yeah.
looking at.
I'm a better mission maker than you.
Ooh. Shots fired.
All right, we'll get started. So, welcome to this mission making seminar, or how you give your fellow members PTSD. So, what we'll go over here is the outline of theory of mission making. So, what my process is, and how I go from scratch of not having any idea what I'm doing to getting to the point where I'm physically building a mission and producing it and playing it in game. Then I'll build a mission from scratch for all of you so you can see how I do it. It'll be a very basic mission and easy to reproduce. And then we might have a discussion at the end if we've still got time. So the objectives of this, the reason I wanted to do this is we have a few people who make missions in our group, and we all do it. A, we all do it slightly differently, and B, we don't all have the same knowledge as each other because all of us have kind of gone through different. Fuck off. All of us have gone through different routes to find out what we know. And so what I want to do is share that information with everyone and compile that experience so that we can all produce more and higher quality missions within the organization. So resources for those who don't know, there's the mission creation procedures and standards standing instruction, which is in the OIP channel, which kind of runs you through the bare bones of creating a mission within JSO. So that's more about naming convention, setup in terms of respawns and units and stuff like that. But I still refer back to it every so often. You've got the mission bank tracker and SMEAX. So I might actually open that up now. So this is, how far back are you guys? Can you see the Google Drive now?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we got mission bank SMEAX and the mission bank tracker. So everyone who's in ops should at least know about this. So we've got the mission bank tracker. So this is when we've created a mission, I want everyone to put the information on this table. There's two tabs. There's operations, which is kind of the more serious stuff, and then there's miscellaneous missions, which is the more fun stuff. So Sam's got his air power, wrecked, magic helo, gunslinger, that kind of stuff. I know Foles is working on a whole bunch of missions down here. So it's just basic stuff so that someone can refer back to it. And the idea is if there's no mission ready, or if you're just having an impromptu session, you can go, oh, what mission should we play? You refer to this, and then you're like, oh, okay, this suits what we want to do. This is for how many players. This is this type of mission. There's these sort of support assets. It has a SMEAC. You've got comments on the side, all that kind of thing. So this is really future-proofing mission making and playing. Ooh, where am I going? And then we have the SMEACs themselves. So if you're ever doing a mission, please actually write it up in this drive. All of you should have access to it if you're in Opster. Right up in this drive, working SMEACs in here, and then I prefer publishing it to PDF when it's finished, but you don't have to as long as it's ready to go. So do that so it's all in one place. So if you put a mission on the mission bank tracker, but then the SMEAC's not in the folder, people aren't going to be able to find it. So there's the script database, which is also in this folder. There's only a couple of things in there at the moment. So this is for more complex mission making. I think I've got a couple in here. So if you create a simple script, which is easily replicable, pop it in here so everyone else can use it. And topographic maps are also in here, which Chad uploaded. So that's stuff. This is more about kind of the story making of it, and also for putting into your SMEOC or something if you want to make it look a bit more realistic. So split up. These are pretty much a bunch of Arma 2 maps, which all kind of correspond to the same geographical area. So you've got Chernobyl in the northeast, you've got Podgorsk, Utez, Takistan, Zargabad, those kind of things. So it's just something to refer back to. So the goal of what we're doing here, as I said, is to make better missions within the organization and more of them, and share this information with each other so that we can all do it. So in terms of a mission creation process, this is what I go through to create any mission I'm making. So I'll start off with a concept. So what is the overall idea? Maybe there's some sort of tactic or asset that I want to test out, or there's something that I want the group to do within the mission. So if I want to use a heavy gunship support, if I want to use mortars or tanks, if I want there to be peels, defense in depth, something like that, I can build a mission around that simple idea. You can follow real life storylines. Sorry, I'm just kind of skipping ahead of myself. So the mission creation process, 7 points. The concept, choosing a terrain, areas of interest, objectives, how you want it to play out, build it, test it. And that's the 7 steps that I go through to create a mission. So as I said, the concept. So what real life storylines could make a fun mission or campaign? And you see there you got tactics like moot, patrols, recon, strategies like defense in depth, vertical envelopment. Vertical envelopment is the next mission I'm going to make. I've already been thinking about that one and how to build it. And equipment. So who, what, when, where, and why is your basic concept. So who's there, JSO, and what enemy? What are you doing? When are you doing it? Are you at night? Are you during the day? Are you far in the future? Are you current? Where? Obviously the map, and why. Choosing terrain. Something fun and different is always good. So I'll always look for somewhere on a map where we haven't been before. Some interesting kind of landmark or land feature which could make for an interesting mission. A big thing is on Temblin. There's a bunch of really cool rock outcrops or valleys, which are quite good. And you might remember a mission a couple months ago where there's that mountain, that standalone mountain in the middle of an open field, and we had to assault it. And like, that's a really unique location because you got this 200-meter tall mountain just out in the middle of an open field. Makes for an interesting event. Geographical and geopolitical ideas. So a lot of the stuff on kind of Russia's interest in Eastern Europe. That's what Romano did with the campaign. It was all about Russia in an Eastern Europe country, and that's a geopolitical idea stemming from a map location. If you're stuck on something, find a specific location and build your mission around that. Rather than around a element or tactic. Areas of interest. So I might bring this up quickly while I'm talking about that. By the way, guys, jump in with a question whenever you want. So areas of interest, you want to look, once you've chosen your map or you're looking for a specific area, look at towns, industrial areas, emplacements, historical ruins, or an objective can be designed around. So for example, a factory complex on the map can become a tank factory, and there you've got your objective. A field like a farm can become a heroin farm in Takistan, and that's another objective. You can add actions. So Ghost Hotel on Altus is a great area of interest for a high value target or hostage rescue, because of its unique kind of spacing and structure. So if I open, which one do I want? I think it's this one. No, wrong one. This is the mission I'll show you in a minute. There it is. Yeah, so I'll show you this quickly. So what I've done is here's Temblin, and I've gone through and noted areas of interest. So for example, if we go in here, you've got a mine. So mine's an interesting area of interest. Can you guys see in game? You're not too far behind me. Yeah. So this is a unique area. You can see the rocky outcrops with a lot of high ground, a lot of low ground. That can make for an interesting firefight. You've got stuff like, this is the mountain I was talking about earlier. So you've got this just big ass mountain with rocky outcrops in the middle of nowhere. That made for a very interesting mission. You've got this big tall mountain with a radio tower on top. You've got this interesting valley down here, which is actually what we'll use for the mission I'm going to make. So you've got nice high ground up along each ridge. So obviously down here you're surrounded on all sides, can make for a good defense mission. You've got rock outcrops like this. Like, as long as I would try and include this in a mission, just have it at some point because it's interesting and it's something that people will remember about the mission. And if you can put a firefight around it, even better. You've got areas like, there's a, you got this kind of industrial area down here where they're building houses. This is unique to Temblin. I've never seen this before. You've got, here we go, the plantation. So this could be some sort of heroin farm or something like that. You've got very unique kind of waterways in between, all that kind of thing. So that makes for unique areas. And then you can decide, like, this estate plantation could be a VIP rescue or capture because of its kind of location and set out. And it looks like a rich person's area. You could say you got historical ruins there. You got search and destroy in this mine that we looked at before. VIP rescue in a stadium. It's a bit of a classic. Mount Top Church defend. It could be anything as simple as I want to do some sort of river insert. So I'll use this area and we'll come up from a base down here to here and dismount here. And that's the river insert. And it's just simple stuff like that that I want to include in a mission. And it's a good starting point for me. So any questions so far? You take that as a no.
You said you went through and that map and marked off your own locations. Was that what we were looking at just now?
Yeah, so that was me. That was me just jumping onto the map, and I won't always do it like actually putting points down. Sometimes I'll just go through and have a look, and I'll keep it in the back of my head. But I did this specifically for this seminar where I actually went through the whole map and just looked around it. Just thought, okay, solar panel, interesting. Dock with military camp, interesting. Airbase. This is actually a really cool airbase, and I'd like to do something here at some point. Just looking at how like large and expansive it is and how many different areas there are. So I physically went through, looked at a place, and then put a point on the map and said, this is what I would do here. So I just really thought through it. Interesting thing about Temblin is all the waterways and stuff, so it might be good for some sort of water, some sort of boat mission. So yeah.
Cool.
So then we're talking about determining the targets and friendly staging. So friendly composition, what do you want? Do you want infantry? Do you want armor? Do you want air? What sort of combinations? And this limits the scope of objectives as well as the enemy composition. So obviously, if if you just got infantry, you don't want objectives that are more than maybe 1 kilometer apart, because that's just a lot of walking. Whereas if you've got air support, then you can do a whole map of objectives. You can do 20-kilometer spaced objectives because you have that air ability to transport with choppers. It's also a good idea in terms of storylining to link your objectives together, as Romano did today, through a narrative. So the one we saw today was a good one, or you could take out a guerrilla equipment storage, but they're jamming your comms, and so you don't have the exact location of the final objective. So you have to destroy the comm jamming before you can commit to the final objective. So this is like a linked storyline, linking the objectives together through the narrative. So it's a relatively simple but in-depth infantry-based idea, like the one we did today. But once you link it all together, it can actually become quite a high-polished mission where you can either do the main objective by itself as a very simple mission, or you can do the optional preliminary objectives. So the mission in itself becomes changing with who turns up to play it. Then we've got enemy forces. So the general rule of thumb for JSO assaulting is I was going to say 2 bad guys to 1 good guy, but I'd actually expand that out to maybe even 4 bad guys to 1 good guy at this stage, depending on the mission. If we're defending, you can have 5, 6, 7 bad guys to 1 good guy, like we do really well on defense. Yesterday we were in the pub server, and I think 6 of us fought off a battalion of enemy infantry with 6 infantry and a A10 support. So that was pretty insane. And it's also dependent on the types of enemies. So CSAT are very heavily armored and hard to take down, whereas Syndicate are very light armored, and you can shoot them in, you can kill them in 1 or 2 shots. And then the amount of enemy armor or air support changes this as well. So you always got to scale it against each other. Certain factions don't have levels of support in game, but you can change that while you're making the mission by manually creating units. So for example, Churnerous Strike Force only has men, right? So you're like, oh well, they don't have any vehicles, and then you just chuck down a couple of men. You want to find, say, a stalker from CSAT, and then you chuck your dudes in there, and all of a sudden you've got a Churnerous Strike Force APC. And you can do that through scripting as well further down the track. So basic mission structure. This is something I found through someone else's I found this through a different group's information I was searching around. So for a town assault, if you want to build it out to like a relatively large, maybe 2 squad level town assault, as I said, you got your primary objective, you got 3 secondary objectives, and then 3 tertiary objectives. And so this could go from just a single objective, capture the town, and you could blow it up into, you could have 6 objectives, depending on the amount of people who turn up. So you want to capture a town, okay, but then they've got an artillery position with Overwatch, they've got a AAA battery on hill, and they're going to send a counterattack from the north. So those are your 3 secondary objectives within the first primary objective. And then you could have 3 tertiary objectives, which are completely optional. So in essence, you're creating, I think 6 to the power of 6 different missions within this one mission, because all of them are optional and can be played out in different ways. So now we'll move on to how you want it to play out. So this is number, I think, 5. So just before we start building it. So this stage of mission making gets a bit more in depth and detailed. It's not always necessary, but I personally like to create certain situations for people to react to in a mission. So I want to curate a specific event within that mission. So I'll manipulate the mission to play out in a certain way, and this can be done at the objective or plan level within the SMEAC if you want. So you can actually write it into the SMEAC and hope they play it out in that way. An example was a recent mission I made on Tanoa called Save Our Sugar. That's something you might remember, where we had Saber support and 2 infantry squads, where I wanted it to be a staged defense in depth, and I wanted it to be a straightforward defense. So I didn't want the enemy flanking the position too easily, which would kind of just turn it into an all-out defense. I want it very, very much so we only have to focus in one direction, and so we could focus more on the defense in depth and the tactical retreat rather than having to defend from all different directions. So this is fairly easy to do in creating the mission, but the immersiveness required I provide a reason that they didn't flank us. So what I said was that NATO forces had put down minefields in the hills around our position, which was protecting us on our flanks. And as I said, I wanted a stage defense, which meant a tactical withdrawal. This could be tricky since if we defend really well, we don't have to withdraw. So I ramped up the attacking waves, so eventually the positions would become untenable. And excuse me. Also, as the TACCOM, I was able to make that decision myself. So I said, all right, time to retreat now. And that's a tactic that I wanted to practice, and I found a specific place where we could practice it well. And you can also do it through scripting once you get further down the line, but we're not going to cover scripting too much today. That'll be for a future lesson. So build it. You build, you test, you change, you remake, you redesign, build, test, change, remake, redesign, build, test. You're constantly remaking stuff and testing it. And in Arma, there's always going to be something that doesn't work. You could test it 5 times and it will work, and then you go to play it and something will go wrong, which is what happened a couple of weeks ago on Takistan. It was working fine, and then when we actually played it in mission, for some reason it stopped working, and I don't know why, but that's all part of it. And I know that Sam's like redoing a couple of missions which he's not happy with, like where he wants to simplify the scripts that he wrote for it. So you're just constantly like redesigning your missions so they work more efficiently, and you want to learn. So look up new ways of doing things and unlock the editor. There's plenty of new stuff out there that people have found different ways of doing the same thing, and someone's way will be better than everyone else's for different reasons. So play around with it, look it up, Google the shit out of everything, and ask for help. That's what we're all here for. I'll message when I'm building a mission. I'll message Romano and Sam and Chad constantly and be like, "How do I do this? What's a better way to do this?" And that's what we should all be doing: is messaging each other, trying to find the best way to do something. And I've written to myself, there's not a mission I've made yet which I haven't looked for assistance from Sam or Romano or Chad. And I never thought I'd be using scripts, but now I don't make missions without them because they make it easier. So it's all about just learning and getting rope learning stuff so you get better at it, and you can do it automatically. So in terms of building a mission, you want to start with the mission details, the spawn points, your assets, and your objectives. So those are your 4 kind of building blocks. The mission details is in terms of where, when, how many. And then you got your friendly spawn point, your assets, so air or armor, and your objectives. You want to flesh out the objectives to make them look a bit better, maybe add some just some supplies and stuff, build out the area so it looks more real, because the traditional armor areas can be a bit empty. Then you want to add enemies, give them waypoints, triggers, and we'll go through that. I'll go through that specifically in building a mission. And then you want to add a SMEAC intel task for a high polish, which is optional, because this can make a mission actually look really nice when you complete the objectives, it actually comes up and tells you you've completed them. It also gives people who don't really understand the whole SMEAC, like newer members who don't really understand the whole SMEAC thing, gives them something to refer back to, so they can keep up with the pace of the mission. And then test. As I said, know your mission will work before you play it. So test it on the server with someone else with you. Test in editor to flesh out any problems you've got, and then put it on the server once you think it's ready. And then you'll find more issues with it that you'll have to go back and fix again, and ask people to come help test it for you. Any questions so far? Everyone keeping up? Everyone
Yeah,
understand?
what are the sort of scripts that you use with Chad? That you use, like that you got off like Chad and Sam and stuff.
The main one would be something like a AI spawn script. So hold on, let me just find where I've saved it. I think this is it. Yeah, so this is what Sam gave me, which is pretty much a random group script, which you put it in, you assign a certain config class, and it'll spawn a random group on when it's triggered. So you can say, I want to spawn something from the independent side, and it will spawn a random group at random. It will just pick one and spawn it for you, and you can give it a waypoint and stuff like that. That's the most basic one that I use, and you can go simple as it looks there, or it might not look simple, but it is. And you can build it out to something a lot more complex, like, one sec. Which one should I look at? Maybe the one from the other night, empirical evidence. So I did all my scripting for that mission through this one script. So this is still like really simple in terms, as far as scripts goes, it's just repeated, and I've changed the timing on it. But that's where you can, all your AI movement can be done in one script, and you don't have to do any waypointing in Eden. And there's other ones I've got there. I've got like some cool ones, like the info text, which is what pops up at the start of the mission and says like the mission name and time in the bottom right hand corner. I got that off someone else on like Bohemia forums or something. Yeah.
Can we change?
So,
can we change
I
the
have a
picture? 'Cause
question.
That's PTSD right there.
Wait, hold on. What was that, Stacey?
I said, you're bringing back PTSD with this photo.
Yeah. False.
So these scripts that you've been naming, majority of them that I've seen you talk about so far can be done in the editor. So why do you choose the script instead of do them in the editor?
So if we look at the basic one, this random group script is my building block for AI movements at the moment, and it's very basic. So what I can do here is, and I'll answer this, but I don't want to go too much into scripts because that's for a different time. I'm talking about the basics. But to answer your question, what this script does is it'll spawn a group, and it will do it 3 times. And I can change that number. I can say do it 5 times. I can say do it 6 times. I can change the time in between spawns. I can change the spawn locations. So I can do all these random spawn markers, which I can put in the editor really quickly, and it will randomize those points. So what I'm doing is creating a mission where even I don't know what's going to happen because I've created this random script. So if I did it in Eden, I'd have to like go out and put 6 different units down, give them 6 waypoints coming from different places. This, I put in this one simple script, copy and paste it, and it will do it all itself. You can also change a whole lot of things. So you can change the variable of I and increase that. So each time that it runs through the script, it'll spawn more groups per run. So that's how I do waves. I'll increase the waves as I go by increasing the variable of I. So it's a matter of randomization and creating a very fluid, natural feeling mission rather than a very rigid, defined mission, which is something I prefer. And I find this way faster to work with than using waypoints. And I'll show you why when I go through the editor in a second. But does that make sense? So it's just, I find it faster and it creates a much more fluid, realistic mission because as the mission maker, I don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. We could have 6 infantry groups come from the same direction all at once, or they come from all different directions. And it's about reacting to that in mission, and which is what I like to create. And that's part of mission making, is we all have different styles and different things that we aim for in a mission. Romano likes freaking the fuck out of people and playing with completely ridiculous scripts that no one would have ever thought of. I like creating missions where it's just fucking ridiculous amounts of enemy coming at you and you've got to react to where they're coming from. And I like that randomization. All right. Any other questions for now? No. All right. We're going to build a mission. So what I'll do is show you the mission as it looks at the end, and then we'll build it from scratch. And I'll try and do this as quickly as possible in 15 minutes, fuck. All right, so this is what this mission looks like in the editor at the end. I think it's fairly basic. Most of you would think so. Some of you might be like, oh, fuck, like, what the fuck's going on here? We'll go through it and you'll understand. You got your enemies, you've got your objective, this large trigger, I'll explain later. You got your friendlies here with their spawn point. Yeah, so we're going to build a mission that'll end up looking like this. Let's get started. All right. So I'm going to go through this really quickly to keep it short on time. Try and keep up. If you do have a question, just shout it out and I'll try and answer it. Let's go. I've already put this down just because, just to make it easier and to prove a point. I'm going to get rid of all of this. No, I'll leave it. All right. So as I said, in terms of building a mission, you want to I thought I had it written down. Anyway, so you want to start off with the general information. So we're going to attributes. General will change the title and author. We'll make it a JSO op. So this is the JSO naming structure, which you can find in the standing instruction, which I mentioned earlier. It's Operation Valley Squeeze, or just Valley Squeeze, I think it is. So we'll call it a co-op. Valley Squeeze. Author, I tend to make it my JSO tag, but that's up to you. You can change the independent allegiance. For this one, I want them to be friendly to Blue 4. You do want to binarize the scenario file at the end, but not yet. And the reason for doing that is mostly if you if the mission fucks up and it's binarized, it becomes very hard to fix it. Whereas if it's unbinarized, you can actually go into it and fix it quite easily. Just one thing to note, when you are making a mission, don't use Blast Core or JSRS or probably any other like secondary mod that's not part of the core mod pack, because it will fuck with the file and make it hard to use. And that's why you don't binarize, because I've made missions with Blast Core or JSRS and it fucks the file up and you've got to go into the code and fix it. If you binarize the scenario file, it makes it way harder to do. If it's unbinarized, it's very simple and easy to do. So leave it unbinarized for the moment and binarize it at the end. And binarizing is just pretty much like zipping. You just pack it into something small. Go into environment. So I like, and you can leave this for later, but I like to do it at the start. I'm going to make it heavy rain expected. And I always like a kind of dawn dusk mission. So we'll make it 7 p.m. 7 p.m. overcast, start 50%, forecast 100%. Fog will give it a little bit, but not too much. And you can change the weather forecast, so how long you want these changes to take effect. So I'll make it an hour. So it'll take an hour for the changes to cycle through. Oh, what's going on? Well, that's way too dark. Hold on. I think because it's not in summer. So if I put it in summer, it'll be a bit brighter. Yeah, there we go. Give it a little bit of fog. Let's turn that down. So you just got a little bit just to kind of white out the background. I would probably do more, but you have to fine tune that with because it changes between what it looks like in Eden and then what it will look like on the server. Wind and lightning, I'm just going to turn that up towards the end. Then we go to multiplayer attributes. So it's a co-op gameplay, cooperative mission. In plays 0, max will be 20, I believe, and you generally want to set this as the max amount of like actual friendly units you put down. Summary: a revolutionary leader has contacted us to set up a meet in the red zone. Make contact and extract with intel back to HQ. Disable AI. Respawn on custom position, and this is all in standing instructions as well. A spectator, give it a 5-minute respawn. And this is all up to you, like the respawn and stuff. I prefer to give it 5 minutes so there's actual, like a death in game actually means something. You want to share tasks with propagation so that everyone can see the same tasks. And revive, don't touch that. So that should all be good now. That's good to go in a JSO mission. Oh, one thing I forgot is you can change performance if it's a big mission. So this collects like dead bodies and vehicle wrecks. I won't need it for this small mission, but in big missions, you might need to adjust this so that it doesn't clog up the server. Then we'll save as, and I've already got it saved as something, but this is what you'll want to do. And save it as what you want to call it, and this is what it will come up in the mission selection screen on the server. Right, let's place some friendly units. So I want 2 squads, 2 JSO squads, and I generally will put in 2 squads just in case, just so we got plenty of slots in the join screen. So put them here. I'm going to just move them in a bit closer to each other because where they're put down is where everyone will actually spawn. So I don't want them all spread out. And the order that you put them down in game is actually the order that they'll come up in the role selection. So I'll put down a platoon leader squad as well, or fire team, because I want that to come up first. And then we'll name it. So I'll put down the squad as well. So the way that you name it in the role selection screen is just on the leader. So I'll call this the platoon leader, and he'll be at platoon HQ, all in capitals. And that'll mean that his squad in the role selection screen will be called platoon HQ, and his role will be called platoon leader. Then I'll change these guys. So I'll say medic, platoon sergeant, or 2IC, and RTO. You also want to make them more playable. So an easy way to do this is just select everyone, select all the units, right click, attributes. I think because I've got these select, it's not going to do it for me. Yeah. Right click, attributes. Down here, playable. So this, if you don't tick playable, they won't be selectable for players. Then you do the same for this squad. So this will be broadsword, and this is the squad leader. He's at broadsword 1. And then I'd go through and change all of these guys. So you'd have the team leader, medic, auto rifleman, marksman, all that. Won't do it now, but then what you can do is just copy and paste that, and now you've got your second squad. And all you need to do is change the squad leader's squad name down here to Broadsword 2. So now you got your 2 full squads. You also want, I always put down 2 curators just in case. You really only need 1. Make both these guys playable. And they'll be, I'll just call them Zeus 1 at curators. And the other guy would be Zeus 2. Then we want to include the Zeus systems. So if you want Zeus in-game, you'll need to include the Game Master module. And you'll also want the Add Editable Objects module. So what that does is it adds all objects to Zeus at the start of the mission. So we want to name him Zeus 1 as his variable name that we can assign to each of these modules, and he'll be Zeus 2. And then in each of these modules, we'll say the owner is Zeus 1 and Zeus 2. And the same with these, assign Zeus, Zeus 1 and Zeus 2. So now we have Zeus ready to use, and I'll actually make him the playable unit because I want to be able to use Zeus when I'm testing in Eden. So we want friendly assets. So in this, so what I'm doing in this mission is I want us to do a river insert to here, and then we're going to move up to this valley up here. So I want boats for the insert. I want some assault boats or speedboat minigun. Want 2 of those. Pop down at the docks, easy to get into. I get a nice low dock. Good. I'll put down all this stuff just as decoration. So this kind of just fleshes out the area and makes it look a bit more like it's lived in and used. You don't have to. But I personally like to do it, and I could spend hours, days just putting down extra stuff, making it look cool. Be aware though that the more stuff you put down that actually uses a lot more computer power to render and stuff, so it might slow down some people's computers. You want a arsenal, so we want an ammo box of, it can be anything. I like these equipment caches. Then you want to put down the JSO arsenal within this box. So this is one of the few bits of scripting that you'll actually do unless you get right into it. So you want to, and this script is in the standing instructions. So you want this called JSO func add arsenal. And if you don't care about scripting, don't worry about what any of this means, just write this in. And this means that you'll be able to use the add arsenal, add action on this arsenal. All right, now we'll do the objective. So I want to do a meeting in this valley here. So we'll put down an objective marker for the moment. I will, if I've got time, put down actual intel markers, but for the moment this will do. So meet with commander, and that'll be available to everyone in mission, that marker that I've put down. I think you can edit what visibility it is, or maybe not. I'm not sure. So this will be the objective. So I want to put down some independent units. I want them to be FIA, I think. Yeah. So I put down a bunch of patrol teams and stuff here. So they're just going to be hanging out. If I had the time, I would kind of make them kind of doing cool stuff. And what I'm going to do as well, I put down another couple, is put some up on the hills around the edges after I do this. So this is going to be my commander and his 2 bodyguards. I want an AAF commander just because they look a bit better. I want an officer. What do I want? Oh, story colonel is what I want. Yep, Arkenteros. All right, he's my objective colonel. Now I'm going to put some guys up around the edges. And they're going to be, what's going to happen, what I've planned out is I want there to be a bit of immersion here. So I want the enemy to move up on this position and start killing the green 4 guys while blue 4's down here. So they kind of hear the gunfire coming from a while away, and then they've got to defend this position. And what I'll do, because I don't want the green 4 guys to be killing all the bad guys, is I'll actually turn down their ability down here. So I'll turn down their health and armor to like 3%, so it only takes 1 shot to kill them. And I'll turn their ammo right down as well, so they've only got a couple of mags to start. Then I'll copy and paste that team so that I don't have to keep doing that adjustment. That's already done the one time. Put another team over here, and there's one down here which I will just swap out with this one. Everyone keeping up with me so far?
Yee.
Yee. So these are all the green 4 guys. If I had time, I'd flesh this area out a bit more. A useful thing is a mod I use called Zek, and it's Zeus and Eden compositions, which are these compositions of objects. So I can go in here and get a campsite like this, and it's already made up like that. And look at that, you got just a little campsite already there. This is actually how it looked in the mission that I've already made, but I did that bit by bit, whereas I just pulled that out and did it like that instantaneously. So I would go through and I might put like a car down somewhere as well with an HMG, put it over here. So maybe we can use the HMG during the mission. I've been in a position of usability. Then we might put a van, which they've driven up in. So you're kind of building this out. So, how did these guys get here? I like they use this van and this HMG, and I might put another one back over here or something at this shed. So it's just about making it look a bit more realistic. Decorate, flesh out. Oh yeah. So I want to gather intel, and the easiest way to gather intel in Armor is to actually put down a physical intel object. So what all you need is just a table or a desk. So we get classic camping table. It looks like it's just been set up, and we'll put a laptop on top of it. And what I'm going to do later is add a add action option to gather intel from that laptop, which will all be linked with tasks and stuff like that. All right, now we want enemies. So we've got, say, if we're doing a squad of JSO guys, then we want 4 times the amount of enemies. So we want at least 36 enemies. What you can do, and what while testing this, is we could actually do a lot more than that, but I'll stick with 36 or so for the moment. I'm going to use Cherno Strike Force because I think they're a bit different. And I always like using different enemies. I don't like using the same guys over and over again. I like switching it up. So I'll just put down some teams. And what I'm going to do is name these squad leaders so that I can use this in the future. So I want to call him A1. I'm going to put down 3 of them. So A2 and A3. So now we've got 3 enemy teams that are in the forest over here. So what this means is, and I'll put some move restrictions on them so that when we come past, they're not going to be moving up on us, just to maintain the storyline. But they're in here, so they're nice and close for when the objective actually begins. So it's all about kind of, during building a mission, it's about hiding what you're doing as the mission maker so that everything's there and it's ready to go, but the players can't see behind the scenes, because Armor's somewhat restricted by movement pace and scalability. So in realistically, these bad guys would be down in the town over here, right? and they'd have to move all the way up. That'd take too long though. I want this to be a nice quick mission. So I put them right on the edge of the forest. So they've only got to travel about 400 meters to get to the objective. Then we're going to put another set of guys over here, just down the hill. And they're going to be called, since this might make it a bit difficult, I'm going to just do the one guy. He's going to be called Bravo 1 or B1. I'm going to copy and paste him 3 times. We're going to go with guys up here. And they're just out of view. They're going to be Charlie 1. And these variables become important when you start using waypoints and stuff, which we'll see in a minute. And then I'll put one final group of guys over here. Oh, whoops. And these will be Delta 1. This just helps me keep track of who's who while I'm building a mission out. All right, so we've got all our bad guys, we've got all our good guys, and we got all our independent guys in the mission. So now we need to sort out movement. So when the good guys come into the area, I don't want the bad guys to just start attacking, because I'll start attacking the green 4 guys straight away because they're enemies, but I don't want them to do that. So I need to stop them from moving until I want them to move, which can be a bit tricky with armor. It's a bit trickier than it should be, just because of the armor engine, but there are plenty of workarounds. This is some of the simplest bits to mission making. So what I'll do is 3 waves of enemies. So we'll get one team member from each group of enemies to come per wave. So I'll set up 3 triggers for 3 different waves, keep it simple. If I wanted to, I could make it complex and more staggered by making more waves, more triggers, different timings, all that kind of thing, but we'll just keep it simple. So we'll put down our first trigger, which will kind of encompass this area. And I know I'm doing this from my knowledge of testing. I'm going to make it a bit smaller, actually. 150. But you guys will need to kind of test this as you go and figure out, what works for you. So I know that by making the trigger this big and putting it in this certain location, so the blue 4 crosses it here, that it'll take a certain amount of time for these guys to get into the objective area. So I've timed this all out and figured it out ahead of time, but you'll need to do testing to figure that out. So we'll call this wave 1, and this is just to keep track of our stuff. Activation blue 4 present. This means that when blue 4 enter this trigger area, the trigger will become activated. That's our first wave. Now what we want to do is called disable AI, and it's a script. It's a script. Romano, what are they called? What's the technical name? Disable AI. It's not like a command.
Disable simulation.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a command. So, but it's a really basic one. So all you need for this is the squad leader of each group. So you don't need to do it, because what they do is they follow the squad leader. So if you tell the squad leader what to do, the rest of the guys will follow him. So I'm going to say A1, because that's the variable name of this group. I'm going to say disable AI in brackets move, because move is the waypoint type. And that's my little script there. And that's really helpful and very simple. And then what I'll do is put down a move waypoint in front of him. So what's that saying is, don't do this move waypoint. That's your waypoint, but I'm telling him not to do it. So now he's kind of stuck. So he's got this move waypoint, but he can't do it. And then he can't do anything else after that until this move waypoint is completed. So he's frozen in time, basically. And there are more complex ways of getting around this, but this is the simple way. Then what I'll do is on this trigger is set the opposite. So I'll say A1, his variable, and I want to enable that move waypoint. So once blue 4 enter this trigger area, they'll trigger this script, and that will then enable this squad to then do their move waypoint, and then they can do stuff from there. So then I'll set another one. I'll set a search and destroy, seek and destroy waypoint on these guys, because I want them to cut off blue 4's retreat down this road. So the first couple of guys I'll send in another group which will come down here and just completely cut off the exit to the valley. I'll then have another group come up over this side, one come down the back, and another come down this way. So we're surrounded. I'll then do that for one group from each little area. So we got D1. I'll do the same. D1, disable AI move. And I'll give him a move waypoint just here. Do Charlie 1, disable AI move. Oh yeah. And Bravo 1, disable, if I can spell, move. And you always want to use, for those who don't know, a semicolon at the end of each script action. Otherwise it produces an error. And I'll also do one for this guy in the first wave. As I said, well, I'll show you in a second on where I want them to be going and why. Right, so they've all got their frozen waypoints. So what I want these guys to do is I want them to move over here and go around and take this position down here. By the way, I held down, when I was doing that waypoint, I held down control, and you'll see the little plus in the middle of my cursor, which means that I keep adding waypoints like that. If you let go of control, then it will just finish it. Get rid of those. I'll change this waypoint. I want it to be seek and destroy. And then I want them to, actually no, I might change that back to move because I want them to go down there. And then I want them to seek and destroy up over here. So when they're enabled, they'll move down here, they'll move down the road, and they'll engage enemies as they see them along the way. I know during testing that if these guys are still alive down here, by the time they get there, they'll start engaging them from up here somewhere. And then they'll move up and seek and destroy in this area, because this is the final objective area. And then I want the other group to seek and destroy at this castle and kill these guys. And then I want them to move here and seek and destroy down in the objective area. I want these guys to just come straight down to about, I want them to come through here and down in here and seek and destroy. And finally, I want these guys to move here and kill them, and then move down and seek and destroy down there. I think I haven't done these yet. Yeah. Oh no, I have done them. I just might add a second one further up there. Oh. Right, so there's one thing left to do to complete this wave trigger is to, well, there's two things left. I want to finish writing all of these in. So I can just copy and paste that because they're all the same and just change the variables. So Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. And I've actually got a Bravo 2 in there as well. So I might do another one because remember I am sending 2 units from this side. So I got Bravo 1, Bravo 2 coming from here. Now we just need to connect the waypoints that I'm freezing to the trigger, which is acting on them. So this is the move waypoint that I've disabled. I want to set waypoint activation to this trigger. And I'll do the same for each one. So we got 2 over here, set waypoint activation. Set waypoint activation. Set waypoint activation. Can't see it. And set waypoint activation. So now, theoretically, we'll need to test it. Theoretically, we've got all these enemies, and they're frozen in place until I enter the waypoint area. So what I'll do is test this out. I'll give it a little save, and we'll play scenario to test it. Apparently, Templin by Ben. Any questions so far?
Nope.
I'm just going to add subtract to the call. All right. So as I said, I made myself Zeus, and you see all the guys spawned in here. You'll see the arsenal over here works. Classic JSO arsenal. So I made myself Zeus, so I can just hit Y, and I can go and do whatever I want. When it loads. So what you'll notice is that all these guys didn't get added to Zeus, so they're here, but they didn't get added to Zeus. It's something weird about Eden, where they won't get added to editable objects unless you're in a multiplayer server. I don't know how it works or whatever, but that's just a fact.
So I can. There's actually a
go ahead.
setting in your CBA. If you go to Ace Zeus, I think you have to set it.
Ace Zeus in settings,
Yes, or something to that effect.
in add-on options.
Yes. Add objects to curator and save it.
We're
I just
all
have-
learning today.
I have the
Yeah.
the JSO set.
I did not know that. Right, so it says I need to restart before it'll do it, but anyway. Yeah, I've been doing this for a year now without knowing that that was a thing. So I might just add a few of these just so we can see what's happening. So as you saw there, you got all the bad guys set up in their little spots. But none of them are moving, right? And you can see the waypoints, but they're not doing them. So I'll just put down a random blue 4 guy to trigger this. All right, so blue 4 present, and look at that. They're on the road. And it'll be same up here. I think both groups are moving. You can see that. I don't know why are they all individual? That's weird. I don't know what's going on here, why they're all individual. How many? Yeah, for some reason he's only got 2 guys in his group. I don't know why that's happened, but they're the same. They've split up, and they've split up. I don't know why that's happened. That's weird. We'll have to investigate that. That didn't happen in all my playtesting. Anyway, so they'll move in and they'll do their thing. But that's just to show that that works.
But does it work?
Shh. All right, so what we'll do from here is create the next 3 waves. So pretty much copy and paste what we've done already. So I'll make 2 more triggers that are exactly the same. I'll call them wave 2 and wave 3. And all this is already set up. I just changed the variable numbers. So I want alpha 2, bravo 3, because we've already used bravo 2, charlie 2, and delta 2. And we'll remove that one. Oh, sorry, this is wave 3. So we want alpha 3, charlie 3, and delta 3, and bravo 3's already been... Oh, we'll leave them in there, just for...
Your Delta 3 one doesn't have a space.
What's it said? It's giving me an error move. Error missing semicolon? What? Ah, thank you. Good
That's what
call.
I said.
You did. I was told. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. And we'll make that delta 2, charlie 2, alpha 2. So we got our 2 triggers. We'd go through. We got alpha 2 here. We'll write what I'll do is copy and paste the code just to make it easier. We'll make that alpha 2. I'll do the same for alpha 3. And you're just going to go through and copy and paste all this stuff. So this is like what takes time, is this kind of thing. And it's one of what I think is one of the drawbacks of doing this in Eden. And this is what I was talking about with the script. So in here, hello Ewok invaders. What was I saying? Scripting. So in here, I've got to do all of this. I've got to set these disable move waypoints, and then I've got to tell them where to go and all this. This takes time. I can copy and paste this script in 2 seconds and get almost the same end result, because what happens here is these AI aren't actually existing in game at the time. So I don't need to worry about telling them not to do a move because they don't exist. And then I can spawn them in and give them a waypoint, and I can either add a waypoint to a certain area, to a certain space. I can put down a hidden waypoint. So I can just put down a system waypoint here and call it marker 1. And I can tell them to go to marker 1 because I know that that's where the friendlies will be. Or what I've done in this script is told them to get pos leader Reaper, and Reaper's just a variable name that I usually give to my broadsword 1 squad leader, so that they'll get the position of the leader of a variable named Reaper, which will be broadsword 1. So they'll get the position of this guy down here. They'll get this guy's position, and they'll just create a waypoint and head to that position. So instead of doing all of this, I can write a simple script, which I've already written once, and now I can just copy and paste it, which is the advantage of scripting, is you can just copy and paste scripts for each mission and change some small variables. I don't need to do any of the, I can do like one trigger and it will execute one script, which will do all of this just by itself. And I don't need to do any of this putting down of units, adding waypoints and all that. So that's the cost benefit of using a script. Make sense, Foz? Foz?
Yes, makes sense, but I can show you an easier way in the
Okay.
editor.
Well, we'll leave that. If you want to do that at another... Why they've all split up? This is weird. I must have done something. Yeah, we'll go through that. This is fucking weird. If you want to do one of these at a later date, you'd be welcome to. You can show us how you do it. I'm just rejoining all these guys. I don't know why they split up. I'll just do these ones because it's just for argument's sake. Doesn't actually matter. Delta 1, move. Delta 2. Yep. And Delta 3. And also for those who aren't aware, what this init box is as soon as the mission starts, this, whatever code's in here will initialize. So as soon as the mission starts, they'll be like, oh, disable move. And that's what the initialization boxes are. Charlie 1's already set. We'll go Charlie 2 and Charlie 3. I forgot to add move waypoints over here. Move waypoints. Might actually add in their final move waypoints here as well. So I want them to go down on this flanking route down here. And I want these guys to maybe just go straight down the middle again.
I have a question.
Yep.
If you do everything right, about how long does it take you to do all this to make a mission?
This mission, when I made it before, it probably took if I was just going through and like I had a specific aim and I didn't have to fuck around too much, I could do it in a couple of days nowadays. Like that, you know, that one.
What, like
Oh,
a
you want
couple of
the?
hours every day, or
I'd
what?
spend 3 or 4 hours a day on it.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of days.
So
Like that
the-
one we did on Takistan the other day only took me 2 days to make, and that was all scripted and everything.
So to piggyback off
99%
him,
of it was in the fucking airfield.
yeah, to piggyback
Yes.
off him, you can generally, depending on how much you want to do, so if there's almost no scripting and you just want to build some stuff, like maybe a fob or something, a lot of that takes the most time is actually building small areas and the scripting. So if you don't do a lot of that, you can generally knock out a mission in a couple hours if you stick to pre-made compositions and stuff like that.
Well, look at it this way. I've almost finished making this mission in an hour and a half. Granted, I'd made it before, but like it's almost done already.
Oh, that's
In the one that I made before, like the example mission for this, I fleshed out a lot of the areas a lot more, which I haven't done. And as I said, I like to flesh out areas a lot, which, as Shane said during the Takistan mission, is a lot of what I did was just fleshing out the areas to make them look realistic, give them a bit of immersion. So it's just up to how much you want to put into it. But simple ones like this don't take too long. So yeah, we know we want to connect set waypoint activations to wave 2. Where's alpha 2?
Oh, I have another question.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, and like, how do you make sure that the like when these guys are walking there, and I know you've determined how long it takes for them to get there, how do you make sure that the blue 4 people are still like have something to do while they're
So I'll get to that momentarily. That's the next part of.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, you're getting ahead. The fuck am I doing? Charlie 2 to wave 2. I might do Charlie 3 to wave 3. Yeah, so that's the next part is you want, and that's why scripting is good, is because you can actually spawn them in a lot closer than you would be, because with this I've had to set them a fair way back, so A, they're not detectable, and B, they're not going to shoot at you randomly, which is kind of what these disable move waypoints doesn't disable their ability to shoot at you, just FYI. So they will stand at one position and still shoot at you, I believe. This should be alpha 3, I believe. I think that's alpha 3. Yeah. And I want Bravo 3, I think, is the last one. I've probably missed one in my rush, but we'll deal with it. All right, so all of these should now be connected. I'm just going to stack the triggers on top of each other, so they all activate at the same time. What I'm going to do is give, and I told you I know the delays, so I'm going to give wave 1 just a minute delay. Oh, sorry, 60. So that's in seconds. So these are delays until the trigger activates from the time that the activation has been completed. So blue 4 will enter the area and it will stopwatch 60 seconds until these guys actually do their thing. But that's on all of them. So what I want to do, I can't remember how I did this in the other fucking mission. I might give it a 10-minute or a 5-minute delay on this one. So we'll go 300 seconds. That's on wave 2, and then wave 3, I'll give it another 5 minutes on top of that. So if I had more time, I'd do this a bit more exactly, but oh, whoops, that wasn't 5 minutes on top. 600. So the first wave will trigger, then 5 minutes later the second wave will trigger, and 5 minutes after that the third wave will trigger. There are easier ways to do this where they'll actually compound on top of each other. I seriously can't remember how I did it in the last mission. I'm having a mind blank. What I will do is I know that these guys at the front can be a bit finicky, and they have actually wiped out the whole other team at the start of the mission. So I'm actually going to put in a car to come down and fuck them up. Just a little HMG, as I said. Chernarus doesn't have cars, but I'll get 2 guys and just put them in the car. And I'll call that car 1. I'll give it a car 1 disable AI move. And you always want to use move. The other waypoints don't work that well when using this command. Move always works, so just stick to move and put it right in front of them, and then do whatever you want after that.
So,
that one.
just for clarification on that command, that actually disables the AI's ability to move at all. So make sure that there's somewhere they're not going to get in contact, because they won't be able to run away. They'll just stand there.
Yeah. So that's why scripting, I think scripting in this situation is better, because they're not actually in a place. So I could script enemy AI to spawn in here, and Blue 4 can walk right past this position. There won't be any enemy AI here, and then they'll spawn in later. That's the advantage of scripting, is you don't actually need to have the guys physically there to start off with. I'm going to attach that to wave 1, if I can see it. Yeah, and remember to put it in wave 1 as well. So car 1 enable AI move. So now we've got our triggers, enemies are doing stuff. And so I had 2 solutions to enabling the first trigger. So either I could do it the way I have, where it's just timed, and that's a simple solution. It relies on timing though, which means that if timing's off for whatever reason, like say the friendlies enter the area and then either they start fucking around, or maybe someone gets armored and then they're fucking around here, then they could still be here when everything gets enabled rather than up where the objective should be. You also need to figure out how to keep players engaged for that amount of time, which is what I'll talk about. Or you could do some scripting, which will enable the triggers based on different variables, and it's much more reactive to what a player actually does. So they need to do something before the trigger will be enabled. It's just more exact, but it's also more difficult to do. So how do we keep the players engaged for the 2 minutes that it takes the enemy AI to enter the area? Well, what we have is the commander here, and we're meant to meet with him, right? So we're going to add a task to the resistance leader. So we want to have what we're going to do is add an add action, so a scroll wheel action on the resistance leader to talk to him. And this is done through a fairly simple script, which I'll copy and paste here. All right, that might look slightly complex to some of you, but it's fairly simple. This add action, so that's the command to put an add action on the kernel object. Talk to kernel is what will come out when you scroll wheel, and then when you actually hit the add action, it'll give a hint in the top right corner, and it will say, "Thank you for coming. The intel you see is on the laptop upstairs." And then this is something extra which I've put on, which is it will set damage to an object which I've called task 1, which means that object will be destroyed. And then I can create a trigger which reacts to that task 1 object being destroyed, and that object can be anything. So I can put down I just want something simple. I want
Banana.
Let's see if we got a banana. Oh, we got inventory item, banana. All right, so I can just put down some bananas over here, just the way. In fact, they can be on the other side if really need be. And I'm going to call that banana task 1. And I'm going to create, I think I'm going to create another one. Yes, I want 2. So when certain actions are completed, these objects will be destroyed, and then I can create a trigger which reacts to those objects being destroyed, which I'll show you now just quickly. So I've got a trigger condition is not alive task 1. So what that means is if that means not alive rather than that just means alive, and that means if not alive, task 1 is the object, then the trigger will be activated. And you don't need any of these activations here. You just need this condition. And we'll use that in a minute. We come back over here. So we've got this add action for the kernel. So he says the information's on the laptop upstairs. So we'll go upstairs. We got the laptop. And this is where I'm going to delay people. I'm going to do something that would be very annoying. I'm going to add a hold action, which is this. So again, looks very complex. These 2 bits ignore because they're just the images that come up when you. So everyone knows what a hold action is, right? It's an add action where you actually have to hold down spacebar for it to complete. So these. Oh, did I put that on the table? Oh, I must not have saved it. What do I call it? I think it's laptop. Yeah. Anyway, so this is. If you want to use this, just look up hold action on Google, or you can ask me or Romano or Sam, or I think plenty of people here know what hold action does. It's going to pretty much, I've set it to 60 seconds, so it will take 60 seconds to complete the hold action, which means that someone's going to be stuck there for a minute. So that's how I'm holding people in one place for a bit of time.
Sneaky.
It's very annoying, 60 seconds. I did it myself in testing, and I was like, this is fucking taking forever.
Isn't that kind of a behind the scenes reveal though? Wouldn't you expect that if something's going to take that long, that something is maybe happening?
Well, yeah, but that's all. Yeah, when you're in the mission, it's a bit. I know that in the campaign we were very dumb a lot of times when it came to stuff like this. And then part of this is I'm going to set task 2, set damage to 1. So that was my second task, my second banana over here. So now we've got this laptop where someone will come upstairs and I'll have to download the intel, and it will take 60 seconds. So now I've got Blue 4 stuck in this area for 60 seconds, which will give me, on testing, will give me enough time for the enemy AI to get into position and start the assault. And now, what's the time? 12:44. We'll do this quickly. So pretty much everything, this is a mission that can work now. You can export this, provided that it does actually work, which we haven't tested it yet. But provided it works, this is a mission that you can export and see how that looks almost exactly the same as what it looked like before on the other mission. There's only one thing we're missing, which I'll get into in a second. But you can export this mission and play it. It's playable, it's ready. There are enemy, there are friendlies, there's a narrative, all that kind of stuff. On testing, I would actually almost double the amount of enemy, depending on the amount of JSO forces, because for some reason these guys are really shit against the AI. Like even though these AI have no ammunition and no health, they still are able to wipe out a few of the Op4 guys before they get to here. So the last thing we do is add tasks, and this is something I like to do because it adds a level of immersion to the mission again, and it's just an extra detail which I find adds a nice high polish. So we'll go into Intel here, and we're going to go away, senor. Create task. And we're going to put the task where we want the task to appear on the map, because it can be on its position, or you can change it to somewhere else. So destination of task, module position, or you can do it to a synchronized object. I'm going to do it to a module position. It's going to be a meeting task, which is down here. You're going to set it to all playable units so that all the Blue 4 guys see it. Task ID is 1. And title is, I think, what do I name it? Meet with resistance leader. Fuck. That should all be good. So now we've got a task there, which will come up at the start of the mission because I haven't put any sort of trigger or. And then we're going to put down the second task, which will be download Intel from the laptop. We'll call it download Intel task ID 2, sync it with all Blue 4, and we'll make it an Intel task. We'll give it download the Intel from the kernel's laptop and return it to base. We might meet with the resistance leader in town XYZ because I'm not actually sure what this town's called. And then we'll create the last task, which is survive the assault. And we'll call it 3, all playable units, and we'll make it a defend task. Now we need to, so these tasks are here, but they can't be completed without a set task state module. So this is for task 1. We want to set it to succeeded, and we want to link it to create task. And we also want to link it to, remember we put down these 2 bananas? This is where I'm going to use them. So we've got task 1, and we want task 1 to be completed when you talk to the resistance leader, remember? We're going to link it to this banana when it's destroyed. So, oh, sorry, I've missed a step. We want to link it to the trigger. So when that trigger when that's triggered, activated, this task will be completed. And then we'll set another one. So we'll make this one a live task 2. And we'll put down another set task state. And I want that when you download the Intel from the laptop, which I think was this one. Yep. So we're going to sync that to the laptop task, set it to succeeded, and sync that to the second trigger. Fuck. And we also want to set this tasks. What have I done? We also want to set this task's activation to the completion of the previous task. So we want to create task and sync to the first trigger. So this task will only be created once this task is completed. You see how I'm working here? And then the final one is defend, survive the assault. Sync it to there. And we want this task to be created once this task is completed, same one again. So we're creating this sort of continuation effect here. And then we want this to be created once all of op4 are dead. So this is where you get this big trigger from. So I'm going to put down a big old trigger, which is about 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. So it covers the whole AO. And it's going to be activated when op4 are not present. So at the start of the mission, it can't be activated because there's all these op4 in the area. But once they're all dead, it will then activate. And that's when this final task, the defend task, will be completed. Where have I put it? I think it's that one. Yeah. All right. And that's the mission. So what we'll do is quickly test out the tasks and stuff. I might just set the countdown on the laptop to a bit quicker so we don't have to sit around for 60 seconds watching it. Save the mission, test scenario. Oh. It's taking a second to catch up. Oh, look, everything got added. Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Romano. You have saved my life. So see, this task is already here. Meet with the... Oh, it's adding all the fucking animals, though. I don't like you anymore, Romano. So the task is already added, meet with the resistance leader. I'm going to assign it. And then I'm going to teleport over here. None of the Op4 guys are moving yet. I'm just going to teleport myself so I can complete the tasks. So we go in here, we got the resistance leader. We scroll wheel on him, talk to Colonel. The little hint comes up in the top right corner. Thank you for coming, the intel's upstairs. The task is completed and the second task is created, which is just up here. We got the laptop, hold space to download intel. Do that. All right, now we got to survive the assault and the intel is downloaded. So if we have a look, they're on a 60-second timer. I forgot that. So what I will do is just speed up time. So we're in time's going 4 times as fast right now. Here we go, and they're all moving. It's slowing me down a little bit. I didn't add these guys all together, but these ones over here should all be together again. So you imagine you're here and you're just meeting with the resistance leader, and you're downloading the intel, and then all of a sudden you're hearing contacts up in the hills in a second.
So does that trigger start when you start downloading the intel or when you complete downloading the intel?
For the AI to start moving or for the task?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
AI,
for
no,
the
so
AI.
the AI moving is not connected to the intel
Oh, that's
task.
right.
I
That's
could
right.
have, that's probably the better way to do it. But I wanted to show the simpler way to do it first. What you can do is you can connect the AI movement. So now everything's going off. And this is a bit of immersion now. There's a bit of a firefight going on. We're all going, what the fuck's going on? You can see green 4 guys over there shooting at someone. There's stuff going on up there. Yeah, I could connect, or if I wanted to do this mission perfectly, I would connect the AI triggers to the task completion, because then it would be more reactionary. But I haven't done. But you can do that. So you see, even though these green 4 guys are shit, they're still dominating these red 4 guys for some reason. Especially these ones. So this is why I do a little bit of testing, like change bits and pieces. Oh, what the hell? Do they dismount? All right, strange. See, that's something that I would obviously have to fix and go back. Go back to and fix. That's annoying. Anyway, so it almost works. So this is why I said I would actually add more AI in here than what I have, because they're already being dominated by the green 4 guys who actually shouldn't be that good. I should turn down their skill, I think, next time. I don't know how much effect that'll have. But yeah, so pretty much we've got a somewhat working mission here after, I think, 2 hours? No, less, an hour.
So when you make a mission like this and you have a certain number of people that you would want to be on to do this mission, if only like half that number shows up, do you just delete half of the enemies or?
Yeah, so that's why Zeusing is always going to be kind of necessary at this point, because we're always going to have variations in friendly forces. And even during a mission, like we had 6 at the start of our mission today, and then we had, I think, 9 at the end. So obviously you'd do some slight variations to that, possibly. Yeah, so you just have to do that as you go in Zeus. And what you would do is add a little note to your mission and say you'll need to Zeus if there's different amounts of players, because it's set for a certain amount. And that's why we've actually got a recommended player count next to each mission. So I've said these ones you should have 8, or you should have 10 or 9. And then if you're outside of that, you'll obviously, whoever's Zeusing will need to change according to that. Anyone got any questions?
Can I get a copy of that slideshow?
Yes, you
Ooh,
can.
Yes.
I'll
Someone's
link it.
recording this, right?
Yay.
Can I get a copy of
Yeah.
that? My wife called right in the middle of it. I literally
Yeah.
just fucking disappeared forever.
Yeah,
I
just put it up.
came in at the end of that.
So what I'll show you is like, what's the cool one that I've done recently? I mean, besides all of them.
Did I see Operation Emo War in there? Or
Emu.
Emu War?
Yeah.
Reported.
I don't know if I. Yeah, no, that was the one we did on Tanoa. That was the defense in depth mission that I was talking about earlier, which obviously you missed. I'll show. Well, see, so here's the problem. I made this one with Blast Core, so it's not going to show me everything. And that's why you never use Blast Core or JSRS when you're making a mission. So the missions, I can fix it, but at the moment it's broken. Fuck this mission. Let's have a look at, say, empirical evidence, maybe. This is just an example of one where I had a lot of time to flesh it out and make it look good. And then the script broke halfway through the mission, so it kind of fucked me up. Loading. So if you have a look here, I don't actually. So all of this stuff is just immersion stuff. This isn't actually enemy waypoints. This is just for making it look nice. So this is getting people to fly overhead and shit. And this is how much effort I put into like the airfield where we were to make it look like an active airfield. So there's shit everywhere. There's guys driving around. There's guys walking around. There's jets taking off. There's helicopters flying overhead. And then I had a few civilians driving around and stuff. I only had a few AI to kind of like over here, just as kind of scouts, which is what we noticed during the mission. Where the fuck are they? Oh, here. So I just had like one guy up here, so if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, there's a fucking enemy scout, or over here, there was an enemy scout out here, and then we had our little fight down here, but they didn't have any waypoints, they were just defending the area. But everything on here was done through scripting. So you'll see here is where we were, and I had kind of the tasks set on triggers and stuff like that, which didn't end up working because the script broke, unfortunately. But you see all these empty waypoints, empty markers here where things were spawning in, and that was the script I used for that. Is just this one. This was the whole script that controlled that mission, and the reason it broke was I did something wrong in here, which I need to go back and fix. But that's why I prefer scripting over building it in Eden. But obviously, Foles, if you get a chance, you can show us the way you do it in Eden. Any more questions over that whole thing from anyone? No?
What did you have to fix to make it not break?
It was so for some reason, so I've got pretty much two halves to this script. There's the first half that happens in the first 20 minutes of the mission, and then there's the second half which happens in the second 20 minutes. And something went wrong where it didn't convert over properly to the second half of the script, and trying to remember what I did wrong. It's got something to do with the activation clause here, like the while
Yeah.
trigger. I think I should have made it something else, like an if else or something like that. I'll need to ask you, Romana, because I can't remember exactly what it was. But that's what happened. Was the first half of the trigger of the script ran fine, but then it didn't translate into the second half of the script when I wanted it to. But then I just was Zeusing, so I just started spawning enemies, which was fine. It worked well enough. And as you script a bit more, you get better at scripting. So some of my old scripts are very, I mean, relative to that one. I know Romana is having somewhat of a seizure right now looking at it. Yeah, But I used to
There's spacing.
write some really, like, I had this mission For Honor. I had all these different scripts for all different things, whereas you can compile that into fewer scripts and make them simpler as well. So that's what you learn how to make stuff simpler as you go along. All right. Did everyone find that somewhat helpful, or
Yes.